All right, good morning. This is the second day of review for our final. Now, the first thing we're going to look at today is this number I have at the top, this decimal. Now, this particular decimal, let's count over the places for me. This is the tenths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions. Now, I want you to round that to the nearest millionth. What would it be? If you round that to the nearest millionth, well, here is your millionth, so this is what you're looking at. That 8 is more than 5. The rule says if it's 5 or more, you drop it and add 1, right? So it becomes 0.000037. Now, I want you, after you round it, I want you to take the new decimal and I want you to write it in scientific notation. How do you do that? Well, we all know that if you're going to write in scientific notation, the number has to be between 1 and 10. So I have to move that decimal so that it reads what? 3.7 times 10 to what power? How many places did you move it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You moved it 5 places. Is that positive or is that negative? Well, you had to move the decimal to the right, okay? So that means that our sign is going to be a negative sign. Look down here. You're going to have a problem that looks similar to this. I want you to kind of ignore the bottom. xy plus the square root of a to the y root plus x to the y power. What's the first thing you do? You take these numbers and you substitute them, okay? So x becomes negative 4, y a positive 3. You have the square root, a became a negative 27, the root became a 3. Then we said x became negative 4 to the exponent of 3. All you're doing to solve this, write the problem down and then substitute it. Take these numbers, whatever they are on your test, substitute them in, now solve the problem. So let's go back and solve it. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. What is the third root of 27? What can I multiply to itself 3 times and it equals 27? 3, because 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. So the answer is 3. Now the question is, it's a negative 27. Is that a negative 3 or is that a positive 3? It's a negative 3, okay? Now we have to say plus negative 4, because that negative sign goes with, okay? Negative 4 to the third root. So what is 4 times 4? That's 16, okay? So let me show what I did. I said 4 times 4 is 16. Then I said 16 times 4 is 64, okay? So this becomes 64. And again, I have the question, positive or negative? Well, I had 4, 4. So negative 4 times negative 4 gave me a positive 16, right? Positive 16 times a negative 4 gives me a negative 64. Now, I could have written it all out like that, or I could have just said, I have 3 negative signs. That's an odd number, so my answer is negative, okay? So we're going to put our negative there, okay? So we know. Now we have to go through and say, I don't have any multiplication or division, just adding. So negative 12 plus negative 3 is a negative 15. Negative 15 plus a negative 64 is going to equal a negative 79. Okay? It's a very simple problem for us. Okay? Now, I'm going to erase it because it's kind of in our way to what we're going to do next. Okay? Now, we have this equation. We have 5 1/8 x plus 3/10 equals 2 1/5. I'm actually going to write it over here. I think you can see it a little better. So if I have 5 1/8 x plus 3 1/10 equals 2 1/5, what do I do? First thing I'm going to do is make all of them improper fractions. 5 times 8 plus 1, have 41 over 8x. Okay, go to the next one and say plus 3 times 10 plus 1 31 over 10. That equals 2 times 5 plus 1 is 11/5. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, this is my constant. That's what I have to get rid of. How do I going to do that? Do the opposite of what the equation says. It says to add 31/10, so we're going to what? Subtract 31/10. Now, if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other. This is going to cancel. I cannot subtract the other side until I do what? Find common denominators. So if it's going to be 10, what am I going to need to do? Multiply my numerator, making it 22. And that was a terrible decision on my part. I picked out a negative number for you. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so we have 41 over 8x equals, now we have 22 minus 31, okay? So when we do that, we're going to get what? 22 minus 31. We're going to have 9 over 10, but it's going to be a negative 9, okay? Now what are we going to do? We got to get rid of this. How do you get rid of a fraction? It says to multiply the fraction, so we're really going to divide the fraction. But when you divide, you're actually using its reciprocal. So we're going to flip it upside down. 8 over 41. 8 over 41. These guys cancel, leaving us only the x. I look over here and say, is there anything that I can cancel? Well, yes. 8 becomes a 4 and 10 becomes a 5. Can I cancel anything else? I cannot cancel that 9 and the 41. So I just multiply. Negative 9 times 4 is a negative 36. 5 times 41 is 205. So my answer is x equals 36 over 205. Okay? Now, here's the big thing that I need you to remember. You're going to, if it says to add this, you'll subtract it. If it says to subtract it, you add it. You do the opposite. Get rid of that constant. Change everything to improper fractions so that you're using a common denominator. Okay? Let's look at our next problem. We have, what is the third root of negative 27? We've already done this once. That's going to be what? Negative 3 plus the square root of 16, which is 4. Now I have brackets and parentheses. What do? I only weren't able to do these because they didn't affect any other numbers. Okay, now I have a parentheses. Negative 2 to the third power. What is 2 times 2? That's 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Is it a positive 8 or a negative 8? A negative 8, because that 3 goes with that negative, okay? Then we have minus 4, 3, minus, now I have another power over here. Negative 1 to the 9th power. Well, we know that no matter how many times we multiply 1, it is 1, okay? So the question isn't the number. The question is it a positive 1 or a negative 1? We have an odd number. So that means my sign is negative. Okay? So we have a negative 1. So here's what we got. Whoops, forgot my bracket. Okay, so now what we're going to do. Do the innermost parentheses first. We're going to bring these guys down. We're going to say negative 8 plus a negative 4 is negative 12. Then we have a 3, and we have a minus a negative 1, which really means we're going to what? Because we can't subtract a negative 1. Okay, so we'll leave it for now. We'll come back to that in a second. What do we do next? We have to bring this down again because we're still working inside our brackets. Okay, so we have negative 12 times 3, so we have a negative 36. Now I can say minus a negative 1. Really, I don't minus a negative 1. What do? I change my signs. I change it to an addition sign, and then I make it a positive because you cannot subtract a negative number. So now we have 3 plus, but we got to finish inside the bracket, so we have a negative 36 and a positive, so we have a negative 35. And I'm going to write this at the top so you can see where we're at. We've got a negative 3 plus 4, and then we have our bracket. That equals a negative 35. So now what do? You multiply. So bring down that negative 3 and say 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 3 is 12, plus the 2 you carried gives you 14. and it is a negative number. Okay, so now I have negative 3 plus a negative 140. My answer is negative 143. Make sure that you follow the procedure. Okay, powers and parentheses. Then you multiply and divide. Then you add and subtract. Let's look at this next one. What is 110% of 40? 110% of 40. Well, what number is? So that's going to be the x is 110%, which I can't write a percent in my problem. Okay, I'll write it down as a percent first. Okay, of means to multiply by 40. Now I can't multiply that percent. What do I have to do? Change the 110% to 1.1. Why? Because when you have a percent, you're going to drop the percent sign and move the decimal. Whoops, made it a little too far. 2 places. Okay? So we have 1.1 times 40. All I'm going to do is multiply to get my answer. Now, this is the second day of review for this final. You see, Mr. So far, so good, so easy. Good. That's what I'm hoping you're going to say. Now, however, if you have anything at all that you say, Mrs. Turner, I need you to do another problem. I need you to show me that one more time. I need you to text that to me, preferably in the morning, as soon as you've watched this, so that, remember, I record before they go up. So in order for me to help you, you've got to get your text to me early so that I can do it. Sometimes I may put up the video, and especially if you see a part 2, if I got your question later, I'll kind of gather them and I'll make a part 2. I don't mind doing that. But I really need you to make sure you get me those questions. We are only about halfway through the test, okay? So we still got a lot to cover. Pay attention. Do your best to be completely prepared. All right? Have a good day, guys.